Well, it's June, and that means it's time to screen your food plots. And, you know, really, whether it's your approach, bedding areas, water holes, mock scrapes, a lot of stand locations, cruising locations, and certainly food plots, you want to screen. And so there's a lot of different screening options for you, and I want to go into some of the strategy of that. And it's really important that you avoid some of the pitfalls that I see people using for screening every year. And this is a good example right here. Here's a food plot that we want completely hidden. And now we have some nice natural screening on this side in the form of gray dogwood, some bushes, a little red cedar mixed in, some wild cherry trees coming in. And you know, it's pretty good. It's kind of a filtered look. We access right back there, and there's a way that we can see in here when this vegetation starts to come down a little bit. So what I'm looking at is, a lot of times I don't want to use any type of food in the screening. However, when 90%, 80% is already screened and we're accessing 70, 80 yards away, then, you know, this isn't a hard wall right on the outside, then a little bit less important if we have food in the screen. So in this case, we have corn that goes down this strip, and then we have corn along this end right here that'll come in. So we're relying on that corn and several rows of corn. It'd actually be, if we count it out, it looks like about 10 or 12 rows of corn will act as a screening, and then a major portion of corn on this side. So we have that corn. That means deer have to be on the outside of this feeding, and it has to be just in the right spot in a hole, and that we have to see them 50, 60, 70 yards away when we're accessing in order to spook deer. And that's where we really don't have that chance. But bottom line is, we have to screen this. We have to make sure that the deer out here in this food plot never see us coming and going, because if they do, we need to shrink this food plot. We need to screen it better. We need to move our access, because you can never afford to spook deer knowingly off your food plots. And that's why in a stand location, we're on the back side of cover. We access in a location where we look out the window, and now we see the food plot. So it's really important with that screening. Now, if this was a really hard edge, meaning this edge comes right here, we're accessing 20 yards over there, and we have the need for a really important hard edge, we'd use something like our deer fence screening, where it's a mix of sorghum and Egyptian wheat, so that deer are not eating that. They don't eat it. It's non-sweet sorghum, Egyptian wheat, they don't touch. A lot of screening blends out there have some type of sun hemp, sunflower seeds, something like that. And in a case like this, where if we were trying to screen and access 20 yards away, we couldn't have any food. We couldn't even have corn, because there's always that risk, the deer to the outside, they hear you walking by, even if they can't see you. So the worst thing you do a lot of times is plant food in your screening. Now, corn in this case, since 90% of it is already screened and we're accessing 70 yards away, that's going to be okay when we have this big wall of brush right here. But when you're trying to create that hard edge, I see a lot of screening blends that the food plot is 200 yards away, but it's across an open ag field, and the screening blend has sunflower seeds in it that deer love, sun hemp that deer crave. Sometimes not only does the screening blend not grow because there's so much food in it, vining peas is another one you see, but the deer are right on that screening wall, and they're watching you 200 yards away. It's almost looking at it as like a food plot. So really important to understand. Now, long term, we have the corn here. We used screening blend last year as a temporary. Now we have the corn, and you can see back here, for a permanent solution, we have Norway spruces growing back here. And see, in this drought, we've already had to water them 3 times, once a week. You have to dump a lot of water on them to keep them going. You can see they've all budded out. We actually have really good survival rates in here, so we're excited about that. But 2 rows, 6 feet apart, staggered, and within about 7, 8 years, this will be a wall about 6 feet high. Within 10 years, it'll be 12, 15 feet tall, and we'll have a great screening option through here that will be permanent no matter what we do on the inside here. What that means is, if we were using a screening blend, then we take that screening blend, like the deer fence that we're using, we wouldn't use it anymore, and we'd turn this additional space into food plot. Because we have the filtered look, then we're planning for the future, where you don't need to even worry about any type of screening here. If we wanted to plant green food all the way to the outside. And in this case, we use a lot of corn in those first years in a food plot like that, because while our screening's taking shape, we actually have switchgrass out there. We have many layers of screening between here and there, but a lot of times we're using corn, then we have that natural screening, or we're using Egyptian wheat, something like that, 2 or 3 years down the road, whether the switchgrass is filling in, the conifers, switchgrass on the outside, we're getting that screening, and then we're turning the rest of that into food plot. But bottom line is, folks, you have to screen your food plots. Make sure the deer can't see you. Be very wary of using food in your screening blends. And even finally, I'll leave you with this. We have a lot of screens between here and our access. And like I said, we're accessing a long ways away, multiple layers of screening. And I'm not even counting the switchgrass that's out there. That's 7 to 8 feet tall. So you have a lot of layers coming back here to ensure that we're not spooking deer out here. That means if you're accessing right along a food plot and deer are going to be out there, boy, you're gonna have to be 40, 50 feet away with really good screening to make sure that deer don't see you on the inside. So make sure they don't see you coming or going. Make sure you're not using food in your screening. Make sure you're using appropriate width. Now, if you're just screening deer from deer, meaning we have a screening layer along here of switchgrass and deer on the inside, we don't want them to see out here. We want a buck to actually come out to the food source, put them in front of a plot. That could be 5, 6 feet wide of switchgrass. It doesn't need to be really big. But when you're screening people from deer, think 40 feet wide, 50 feet wide or more. But bottom line is you have to make sure, no matter what, if you're spooking deer, widen the screening, shrink the food plot, and enjoy a great hunt, because when you can get on and off your property and in and out of your tree stands without spooking deer, that's the name of the game. And a lot of times it starts with screening your plots. It's the biggest risk factor on your property, deer coming to a food source and the potential for you spooking them. Make sure you screen appropriately, and you'll have a great hunt, especially around your food plots this fall.